Most men find out their bride betrayed them after the honeymoon. I found out 2 hours before the ceremony while standing outside room 814 with her wedding vows folded in my pocket. The hotel hallway smelled like expensive perfume and fresh paint, the kind of place that charged $1,200 a night to help rich people pretend their secrets stayed hidden behind polished doors. My tux fit perfectly. Black Tom Ford. Custom cuffs. Silver watch Olivia bought me 3 Christmases ago when she still looked at me like I was the best decision she ever made. Through the door, I heard her laugh. Soft, relaxed, intimate. That laugh sliced deeper than shouting ever could. I checked my phone again. 4:17 p.m. Our wedding started at 6. 84 guests already filled the ballroom downstairs. My attorney, Daniel Mercer, had texted me 3 minutes earlier. Transfer complete. Trust secured. Signatures verified. I stared at those words longer than I should have. Most grooms spent their wedding afternoon drinking bourbon with friends or taking staged photos beside flower walls. I spent mine locking down every financial structure tied to my name. 3 holding companies. 2 real estate partnerships. 1 family trust Olivia never knew existed. 36 minutes earlier, my forensic accountant confirmed something else. Olivia wired Jason Miller $20,000 from our joint account over the last 4 months using disguised vendor payments routed through her marketing firm. Consulting fees. Event retainers. Fake invoices. Sloppy work. Emotional people always rush the details. I learned that lesson years ago in construction litigation. Numbers always confess eventually. Another laugh slipped through the door. Then Jason's voice. Low. Cocky. He actually believes this fairy tale crap? Olivia answered fast. Ethan sees what he wants to see. That line settled into my chest like wet cement. Heavy. Permanent. I should have kicked the door open. Plenty of men would. Instead, I opened my notes app and added another timestamp beside the others. 3:12 p.m. Valet confirms Jason arrival. 3:26 p.m. Bridal suite vacant. 3:41 p.m. Olivia phone location switches to East Tower. For 17 p.m. Audio confirmation. Calm beats chaos every time. Rage burns fast. Strategy survives. I stepped away from the door and adjusted my cufflinks while the elevator reflected a version of me I barely recognized. Same 6'2" frame. Same gray eyes. Same controlled expression I used during hostile negotiations worth millions. Yet something colder stared back now. Something sharper. Olivia always joked I treated business like chess. She forgot I learned patience from losing before I ever learned winning. My phone buzzed again. This time from Olivia herself. Baby, where are you? Photographer wants us downstairs soon, Red Heart. I read the message twice. No panic. No guilt. Just performance. The heart emoji almost made me smile. Almost. I typed back 3 words. On my way. Then I forwarded Daniel every screenshot, every transfer record, every timestamp I'd gathered during the last 11 days since the first anonymous email landed in my inbox. At first I thought it was a prank. One blurry photo. Olivia entering the Grand Regent Hotel with Jason. Then another. Then receipts. Burner phone records. Private dining reservations billed through her company card. Somebody wanted me prepared before today. The elevator doors opened. Ballroom level. Champagne towers. White orchids. A violin quartet warming up near the entrance. Guests laughed beneath crystal chandeliers, while giant screens displayed our engagement photos like a corporate merger presentation built on lies. And standing near the center of the room, smiling beneath 600 imported roses, stood Olivia Carter in a white dress worth more than my first pickup truck. She looked directly at me and raised her champagne glass like nothing in the world had shifted. Then my phone vibrated one more time. Unknown number. 1 image attached. Olivia kissing Jason inside room 814. Timestamped 4 minutes ago. Beneath the photo sat a single sentence. She still plans to sign the prenup tonight. Olivia crossed the ballroom toward me with the smooth confidence of somebody managing 2 realities at once. White silk hugged her frame perfectly. Diamond earrings caught the chandelier light every time she smiled at another guest. To everyone else, she looked radiant. To me, she looked expensive. Expensive lies always come wrapped in elegance first. She kissed my cheek softly and brushed invisible lint from my lapel like a woman fully invested in her future. You disappeared on me, she said with a playful grin. My mother already thinks you got cold feet. I studied her eyes while she spoke. People reveal themselves in microseconds. Tiny shifts, tightened pupils, delayed reactions. I built a 7-figure company negotiating land acquisitions with men who buried fraud beneath polished handshakes. Olivia still believed emotion covered evidence. Just handling a contract issue, I answered calmly. Everything's solved now. Her shoulders loosened immediately. Relief flashed across her face before she covered it with another smile. There it was. Confirmation. She feared paperwork more than guilt. That told me everything. Across the ballroom, Jason stood near the whiskey bar wearing a navy suit and the smug posture of a man enjoying borrowed power. He raised his glass slightly when our eyes met. Casual. Provocative. Like he wanted me to know exactly what happened upstairs. Men like Jason mistake recklessness for dominance. They push harder every time life rewards bad behavior. My phone vibrated again inside my jacket. Daniel, wire trace complete. You need to see page 4. I excused myself and moved toward the private corridor beside the catering entrance. The attachment opened instantly. $20,000 suddenly looked small. Olivia transferred another $180,000 during the previous 8 months through layered shell vendors tied to Jason's consulting group. False branding invoices. Duplicate event retainers. Artificial campaign expenses. She siphoned money slowly enough to avoid triggering standard alerts, but fast enough to build an exit fund before marriage finalized our asset structure. Smart. Calculated. Greedy. My forensic team reconstructed every transfer by cross-checking tax IDs, invoice sequencing, and IP login histories from her office laptop. One detail caught my attention immediately. Jason never touched the money directly. His sister did. Delaware, LLC. Empty office suite. Temporary phone number. Amateurs always involve family eventually. My jaw tightened for the first time all day. Olivia never chased romance upstairs in room 814. She executed a financial strategy while testing whether I remained blind enough to marry her afterward. The affair served 2 purposes: emotional leverage and asset extraction. That realization erased the last surviving piece of grief inside me. Love still leaves bruises. Betrayal leaves spreadsheets. I zoomed further into the report. Another timestamp appeared beside a highlighted transfer from 6 days earlier. Destination account, Miller Strategic Holdings. Memo line, post-ceremony relocation fund. Relocation. She planned to vanish after the honeymoon. Probably with Jason. Probably after securing access to my business holdings through the revised prenup she pushed last month. Suddenly, every argument from the last 6 weeks snapped into focus. Her sudden interest in equity percentages. Her questions about deferred tax liabilities. Her insistence on joint restructuring after the wedding. Olivia never cared about construction companies before. Then my company landed the Phoenix Municipal Expansion contract worth $42 million over 5 years. Timing exposes motives faster than confession ever will. I slipped my phone back into my pocket and stared through the ballroom doors again. Guests laughed around floral centerpieces while waiters carried crystal trays across polished marble. Olivia stood beside my mother now, smiling like the perfect future daughter-in-law. Jason watched her from across the room with the patience of a man waiting for payday. Both of them believed they controlled the board. Then my phone vibrated one more time. Another unknown number. This time the message contained a PDF attachment titled, Revised Prenuptial Agreement _Final. I never signed that version. My signature sat on page 11 of the original prenup filed 3 months earlier with Mercer Legal Group. Clean. Witnessed. Locked. The PDF on my phone carried a second version created 48 hours ago with altered clauses buried beneath identical formatting. Somebody swapped. Asset protections, adjusted spousal entitlement language, and inserted automatic equity access tied to marital consolidation after 90 days. Clever structure. Dangerous timing. Olivia understood branding and public relations. Jason understood shortcuts. Neither understood corporate litigation. I forwarded the document directly to Daniel with one sentence. Trace authorship. His response came back less than 60 seconds later. Metadata preserved. Draft generated from Olivia Home MacBook at 1:12 a.m. Tuesday. External edits routed through Jason Miller email account. There it was. Fraud leaves fingerprints inside timestamps every single time. I slipped my phone away just as Olivia approached again, carrying 2 champagne glasses. "We need to head toward the chapel soon," she said softly. "My father keeps pacing." She handed me a glass and touched my arm with practiced affection. The ring on her finger flashed beneath the ballroom lights. Platinum. Oval-cut diamond. I spent 4 months designing it with a jeweler in Scottsdale because Olivia once told me details mattered more than price. Funny how betrayal always hides beside memories that used to feel sacred. "You look tense," she added carefully. "Everything okay with the contract?" Her wording caught my attention instantly. Contract. Not work. Not business. She wanted confirmation about the prenup without exposing her interest directly. I held her gaze and took a slow sip of champagne. Everything is exactly where it should be. Another tiny exhale escaped her lips. Second relief response in under 30 minutes. She feared exposure more than losing me. Jason drifted closer while pretending to study the seating arrangements beside the reception hall entrance. His confidence grew stronger now. Men grow reckless when they think victory already arrived. "Big day," he said with a grin that belonged on a billboard for cheap cologne. "You two finally made it official." Olivia smiled tightly beside me. She hated tension near witnesses. Jason enjoyed it. That difference explained their entire relationship dynamic in one moment. "Funny thing about contracts," I replied calmly. "People skim the important sections until consequences show up later." Jason's expression flickered for half a second before recovering. Small tells matter. Fear always enters through the eyes first. Olivia immediately changed subjects and guided us toward the chapel corridor where guests already gathered near the entrance. My mother adjusted my tie while Olivia's bridesmaids fixed her train nearby. Cameras flashed constantly now. Photographers captured smiling faces while 3 separate financial crimes sat hidden beneath designer fabric and wedding flowers. The ceremony coordinator handed me the final marriage license packet moments before lineup. Standard procedure. Signatures after vows. County filing before midnight. Olivia reached for the folder quickly. Too quickly. "I can hold that," she offered. "I already organized everything earlier." I kept my grip firm. "I prefer handling my own paperwork." Her smile froze again. Third tell. Behind her polished expression, gears started turning fast now. Paranoia changes breathing patterns before words catch up. She sensed movement beneath the surface even if she still lacked the full picture. My phone vibrated once more. Daniel again. This time the message carried urgency. "You need to stall ceremony 10 minutes. Private investigator identified the anonymous sender. I stared at the screen while the chapel doors slowly opened for guests. Then came the second line. It was Jason's ex-wife. The wedding coordinator stepped toward me with the tight smile of somebody trying to keep a 6-figure event on schedule. "We are ready for lineup, Ethan." I slipped my phone into my pocket and nodded once, calm enough to fool everybody watching. Inside my chest, calculations moved faster than panic ever could. 10 minutes. Daniel wanted 10 minutes. Enough time to verify the anonymous source. Enough time to decide whether I destroyed Olivia privately or let the entire ballroom witness the collapse in real time. Olivia studied my face carefully as the bridal party gathered near the chapel entrance. She sensed distance now. Tiny fractures in rhythm. Smart manipulators survive by tracking emotional temperature. "You look pale," she whispered. "Are you sick?" "Long week," I answered. Municipal contracts never sleep. That answer relaxed her again because business sounded predictable. Business sounded controllable. She still believed stress came from work instead of her own decisions. The chapel doors remained closed while guests waited inside. Her father checked his watch twice. Bridesmaids adjusted bouquets. Jason lingered farther back near the marble column, pretending to answer emails while his eyes kept drifting toward Olivia. I watched both of them through reflections in the glass display beside the entrance. Affairs create patterns. Shared glances. Synchronized anxiety. Private signals disguised as coincidence. Daniel finally called. I answered immediately and turned slightly away from the group. "Talk." His voice came sharp and efficient. "Her name is Rachel Miller. Divorced Jason 2 years ago after forensic accounting exposed embezzlement tied to one of his former investment partnerships. Securities investigation buried the case quietly after settlement agreements." I closed my eyes for 1 second. There it was again. Patterns. Jason never changed strategies. He recycled them. Rachel contacted you directly? I asked. No. She contacted Olivia first 6 months ago, warning her about Jason. Olivia ignored her. Rachel tracked your company after seeing the engagement announcement online. She sent the photos because she believed Jason planned another financial setup. A strange feeling moved through me then. Relief mixed with disgust. Olivia walked into Betrayal thinking she controlled it. Meanwhile, Jason treated her exactly like another target inside a longer game. Daniel continued speaking while I watched Jason laugh quietly at something on his phone. There is more. Rachel shared archived civil filings. Jason carries almost $900,000 in private debt through unsecured business loans and gambling exposure. Gambling. Suddenly, every transfer made sense. Jason needed liquidity fast. Olivia needed access. Together, they built a fantasy using my future as collateral. Send me everything, I said quietly. Already done. One more thing, Ethan. You hold leverage right now. If you proceed with the ceremony, every camera in that ballroom becomes evidence later. Public image matters in family court and fraud litigation. Stay calm. Stay strategic. The line disconnected. I stared at the chapel doors while another realization settled into place. Olivia thought she manipulated a wealthy husband. Jason thought he manipulated an ambitious fiancée. Neither realized somebody else already mapped the entire scheme months earlier. My phone buzzed again before I could move. Rachel this time. Direct message. One sentence only. Check the flower invoice under Olivia's maiden name. I opened the attached PDF instantly. White orchid arrangements. Ballroom deposits. Luxury floral imports. Standard wedding expenses at first glance. Then I saw the account number tied to payment routing. Cayman Islands Intermediary Bank. Shell transfer structure. $320,000 missing from one of my dormant development accounts. $320,000 vanished from a dormant development reserve that only 4 people on Earth knew existed. Me, my chief financial officer, Daniel, and Olivia. I built that reserve 6 years earlier after a brutal zoning battle nearly destroyed one of my commercial projects outside Tucson. Since then, I treated emergency liquidity like oxygen. Quiet. Invisible. Essential. Olivia learned about the account last winter after 2 mini glasses of Cabernet beside our fireplace. One careless conversation. One moment where love lowered my defenses. Now Cayman routing numbers sat attached to orchid invoices and fake floral imports. Betrayal rarely starts with passion. It starts with access. We are beginning in 2 minutes. The coordinator whispered urgently beside me. Olivia stood 15 feet away near the chapel entrance, smiling for photographs while her father adjusted his cufflinks. Her expression looked flawless. Calm bride. Elegant future. Meanwhile, shell accounts and hidden transfers wrapped around her entire wedding like piano wire. I zoomed deeper into the invoice Rachel sent. The floral company existed legally in Nevada. Real tax registration. Real storefront. Fake vendor chain beneath it. Somebody structured the laundering carefully. Enough to survive surface review. Jason surprised me there. He lacked discipline emotionally, but somebody smarter clearly advised him financially. Then another detail hit me harder than the money itself. The transfer authorization came from Olivia's credentials at 2:11 a.m. 8 days earlier while I slept beside her. I remembered that night perfectly. She curled against my chest afterward and asked whether I ever worried about losing everything one day. At the time, I thought she meant fear. Now I understood she meant timing. Ethan. Olivia stepped closer with concern, softening her voice. You are drifting somewhere far away right now. She touched my hand gently. Anybody watching would call it affection. I felt calculation instead. Her pulse moved fast beneath her wrist, though. Anxiety rising. She sensed instability without seeing the source yet. Big day, I answered evenly. A man starts reviewing every decision before walking into something permanent. Her eyes sharpened immediately. That line landed deeper than she expected. Jason looked over from across the corridor. He tracked her reaction too. Predators always monitor exits once pressure enters the room. You are scaring me a little, Olivia said with a nervous laugh. Please tell me this is not one of those cold feet speeches. I almost smiled at that. Cold feet. She still framed danger emotionally, while financial fraud already circled the ballroom upstairs. Relax, I said softly. I always finish what I start. Those words carried 2 meanings now. She heard only one. My phone buzzed again. Rachel. Another file attachment. This time audio. 37 minutes long. Recorded 3 nights earlier inside a Scottsdale restaurant. I pressed play quietly and held the phone near my ear. Jason's voice came first. Confident. Loose. Once the marriage clears 90 days, Ethan consolidates her into the development equity pool automatically. Olivia answered immediately after. And the revised prenup gives me leverage if he resists later. My chest turned cold. There it was. Full intent. Coordinated. Planned. Then Jason laughed softly before delivering the sentence that changed everything. You marry men like Ethan because they build things. You leave them because builders stay too busy fixing damage to notice theft until it is too late. Olivia laughed with him. Light. Comfortable. Familiar. I stopped the recording halfway through. Some truths lose weight after the first stab. The chapel doors finally opened, and the violin quartet shifted into processional music. Guests turned toward the aisle. Bridesmaids lined up. Olivia reached for my hand again, smiling beautifully while cameras lifted across the room. Then Daniel sent one final message. Federal investigators already flagged the Cayman transfers last month. Somebody inside the bank filed suspicious activity reports. The music began, and every guest rose from their seats expecting romance. I stood at the altar holding enough evidence to bury 3 people financially before dessert reached the reception tables. Strange how quickly love transforms into risk assessment once trust dies. The officiant smiled at me warmly while the chapel doors opened wide. Olivia stepped forward on her father's arm beneath a cathedral-length veil that probably cost more than my first construction trailer. Guests admired elegance. I saw liabilities. Fraud exposure. Wire transfers. Coordinated deception wrapped in white silk. Yet even then, part of me still searched her face for regret. Some tiny fracture. Some hesitation proving a conscience survived underneath all the planning. Instead, she smiled at me with perfect confidence. That hurt worse than the affair itself. Jason sat third row on the bride's side with his hands folded calmly across his lap. Too calm. Men carrying debt and desperation usually sweat under pressure. Jason looked comfortable. That detail bothered me immediately. Federal investigators already tracked suspicious transfers connected to Cayman routing accounts. Any intelligent man facing potential fraud exposure should have looked nervous by now. Instead, he watched the ceremony like somebody waiting for a business acquisition to finalize. I replayed Rachel's audio inside my head while Olivia walked slowly toward me. You marry men like Ethan because they build things. Jason said that line with admiration instead of resentment. Builders create infrastructure. Builders create wealth. Builders also create cover for parasites smart enough to attach themselves early. Olivia reached the altar and placed her bouquet beside the podium. Her fingers trembled slightly while she handed one glove to her maid of honor. Fear finally surfaced. Small. Delayed. Real. She sensed instability growing even if she still lacked the source. The officiant started speaking about commitment, loyalty, and lifelong partnership while my phone vibrated silently inside my jacket every 30 seconds. Daniel kept forwarding documents from his forensic team. Asset freezes. Transaction tracing. Preliminary litigation pathways. I skimmed each notification quickly while guests focused on scripture readings and ceremonial vows. Then another message arrived from Rachel. Jason already used Olivia once before this. Attached beneath it sat a photograph taken 11 months earlier. Olivia and Jason inside a private casino lounge in Reno. Her head rested against his shoulder while stacks of chips covered the table beside them. Timestamp proved everything started long before our engagement party. Long before venue deposits. Long before wedding invitations. She never relapsed emotionally. She maintained an active double life while planning marriage around financial extraction. My chest tightened briefly before calm settled back over me again. Grief burns hot early. Then calculation takes over. The officiant turned toward me first. Ethan, do you take Olivia to be your lawfully wedded wife? Every face inside the chapel shifted toward me waiting for the expected answer. Cameras lifted. Smiles widened. Olivia looked directly into my eyes with practiced tenderness while her thumb brushed lightly against my hand. Performance. Every second of this ceremony operated like theater built on forged paperwork and stolen money. I opened my mouth slowly. I do, I answered clearly. Relief exploded across Olivia's face so quickly she almost looked dizzy. Jason leaned back in his seat, smiling faintly. They thought the hard part ended. That was their mistake. The officiant turned toward Olivia next. "Do you take Ethan?" My phone vibrated again before he could finish. "Daniel this time. One sentence only. Bank compliance confirmed another transfer attempt initiated 30 minutes ago from Olivia's phone during the ceremony lineup." Olivia answered the officiant with a steady voice. "I do." Applause filled the chapel instantly. Guests smiled. Cameras flashed. Her mother wiped tears from her eyes while Jason lowered his head briefly like a satisfied investor watching a merger close successfully. Then came the final step. Marriage license signatures. Legal completion. Real consequences. The officiant extended the folder toward us with ceremonial warmth. "If the bride and groom would sign here, we can officially celebrate the beginning of your new life together." Olivia reached for the pen immediately. Fast. Focused. Hungry. That movement told me more than any confession ever could. She wanted the paper finalized before another problem surfaced. Before another bank alert triggered. Before another transfer froze halfway through the system. I accepted the folder slowly instead and flipped through the pages with deliberate calm. "Actually," I said evenly, "before we sign anything, I would like to thank everyone for being here tonight." The guests smiled politely at first. Typical groom speech. Harmless. Expected. Olivia relaxed beside me again, while Jason leaned back comfortably in his chair. I turned toward the chapel AV technician near the rear wall and lifted one finger slightly. He nodded once. Daniel already handled the rest 20 minutes earlier. The giant projection screens behind the altar flickered softly before switching away from the wedding monogram. Olivia noticed first. Her smile faded by maybe 2%. Tiny shift. Tiny crack. "Ethan," she whispered quietly. "What are you doing?" I ignored the question and faced the guests instead. "Marriage works best when two people enter honestly," I said calmly into the microphone. "Transparency matters. Trust matters. Financial integrity matters." Jason sat upright instantly now. Smart man. He finally smelled smoke. Behind me, the first image appeared across both screens. Room 814. Grand Regent Hotel. Timestamp. 4:17 p.m. Olivia's face. Lost color so fast, it looked like somebody drained warmth directly from her skin. Guests turned toward the screens slowly at first, confused, then frozen. Another image followed immediately after. Olivia entering the hotel elevator beside Jason earlier that afternoon. Then came bank transfer records. Cayman routing paths. Shell companies. Fake floral invoices. Layered LLC structures tied directly to Jason Miller and Olivia Carter. Silence spread across the chapel heavier than any screaming ever could. I kept my voice calm because calm destroys harder than rage. 10 days ago, I received evidence suggesting somebody planned to use this marriage as financial leverage tied to fraudulent transfers and manipulated legal agreements. Olivia grabbed my arm suddenly. "Ethan, please," she whispered sharply. "Stop this right now." Her composure shattered faster now. Breathing uneven. Eyes wide. Panic always arrives once secrets become public property. I stepped slightly away from her grip. $320,000 moved through offshore intermediaries using vendor structures attached to today's wedding expenses. I continued. $180,000 traveled through disguised consulting retainers linked to Mr. Jason Miller. Jason stood abruptly from his seat. "This is insane," he snapped. "You are humiliating your bride because of conspiracy theories?" I almost admired the confidence. Almost. Then Rachel's audio recording filled the chapel speakers. Jason's own voice echoed clearly across the room. "You marry men like Ethan because they build things." Olivia closed her eyes immediately. Jason stopped moving completely. Every guest inside that chapel heard the rest. Asset leverage. 90-day consolidation plans. Exit strategies. Financial extraction. Even the officiant looked stunned now. Olivia finally turned toward me fully, tears building beneath mascara and shock. "You tracked me?" she asked weakly, like betrayal only counted once she became the victim of exposure. "No," I answered quietly. "I audited my life." Then Daniel entered through the chapel doors beside two men wearing dark suits and federal credentials. The entire chapel froze in a silence so complete I could hear Olivia breathing beside me. Short, uneven, Panicked, her father stared at the projection screens like his brain refused to process what his eyes already understood. Her mother sat motionless, gripping the edge of the pew hard enough to wrinkle the fabric around her gloves. Across the aisle, Jason shifted backward slowly as the two federal agents entered beside Daniel. His confidence vanished first, then his posture, then the color in his face. Men like Jason survive through momentum. Once momentum breaks, fear floods every empty space underneath. One of the agents approached calmly and held up a leather credential wallet. Jason Miller? Jason forced a smile that collapsed halfway across his face. This is some kind of misunderstanding. The older agent answered immediately. Then you will have plenty of opportunities to clarify transaction activity connected to multiple flagged accounts under active review. Every guest inside the chapel turned toward Jason now instead of Olivia. That shift changed the entire power structure instantly. A few minutes earlier, he sat there like a hidden winner waiting for paperwork to finalize. Now people looked at him like contamination. Olivia grabbed my arm harder this time. Ethan, please, she whispered desperately. You made your point already. Point. Interesting word choice. She still framed betrayal like embarrassment instead of calculated theft. I looked down at her hand wrapped around my sleeve. The diamond bracelet I bought her last anniversary shimmered under the chapel lights beside fingernails that signed fraudulent transfers hours earlier. You were going to marry me today while moving money offshore through shell vendors, I said quietly enough that only she could hear. At least respect the scale of what you chose. Tears finally spilled down her face then. Real tears this time. Fear stripped performance away fast. I was going to fix everything later, she said weakly. Jason pushed things too far. There it was. Deflection. Even now she searched for partial innocence inside a disaster she helped design. Jason suddenly stepped forward toward the altar before either agent stopped. Him. She never planned any of this, he snapped sharply. I handled the accounts. Leave her out of it. That sentence surprised everybody, including Olivia. She looked at him with genuine confusion for the first time all day. Then realization hit her slowly. Rachel warned me earlier. Jason recycled strategies. He used people until pressure arrived. Then he traded loyalty for leverage. The younger federal agent opened a tablet and turned the screen toward Jason. We already recovered encrypted messages discussing transfer percentages and post-marriage asset division, he said evenly, including communication from Miss Carter requesting accelerated movement before signature completion tonight. Olivia physically staggered backward one step. Jason closed his eyes briefly. That tiny movement told me the evidence ran deeper than either of them expected. The chapel no longer felt like a wedding venue now. It felt like a courtroom wearing flowers. Guests whispered quietly across the pews while photographers lowered their cameras, unsure whether documenting anything further crossed a line. Daniel stepped beside me calmly and handed over another folder. Emergency injunctions finalized 20 minutes ago, he said quietly. All linked accounts frozen pending investigation. Olivia heard every word. Her face drained completely. Frozen? She repeated softly. Every domestic account connected through traced activity, Daniel answered professionally, including the Scottsdale condo purchase scheduled for Monday. Olivia's eyes widened instantly. She never told me about any condo. Jason looked at her sharply from across the chapel. Tiny betrayal inside a bigger betrayal. Suddenly both of them realized hidden pieces existed even between each other. Then Olivia turned toward me again with tears streaking down makeup and whispered the sentence that finally killed whatever survived between us. Ethan, I was still going to leave him eventually. Olivia's words hung in the chapel like smoke after a fire. I was still going to leave him eventually. Jason stared at her with open disbelief while the federal agents continued speaking quietly with Daniel near the entrance. That single sentence destroyed the final illusion holding their alliance together. Affairs survive on fantasy. Fraud survives on trust between criminals. Once suspicion enters, both collapse fast. I looked at Olivia for a long moment and realized something painful. She still thought this tragedy centered around romance. She still believed heartbreak caused the damage. The real damage came from calculation. She studied me for years, learned my schedules, learned my blind spots, learned how I handled contracts, partnerships, expansion deals. Then she used intimacy like a password. You were never planning a marriage, I said quietly. You were planning access. Tears streamed harder down her face now. Mascara stained the edges of her cheeks while guests avoided eye contact around us. Her father sat motionless in the front pew looking 20 years older than he did an hour earlier. Jason finally snapped toward Olivia with anger sharp enough to cut through the room. "You told me the account structures were clean," he hissed. "You said he consolidated manually." There it was again. Self-preservation. Even now, Jason worried more about exposure than betrayal. Olivia turned toward him slowly, stunned by the shift in his tone. "You said the transfers would clear before review," she fired back. "You promised nobody tracked dormant reserves." Amazing how quickly soulmates become opposing witnesses once consequences arrive. One of the federal agents stepped toward Jason again. "Mr. Miller, we strongly suggest you stop discussing financial activity publicly." Jason went silent immediately. Smart move. Too late, but smart. I handed the unsigned marriage folder back to the officiant. "There will be no filing tonight." My voice sounded steady, almost detached. The officiant nodded carefully and closed the folder like he was sealing a coffin. Around us, guests started leaving quietly through the side aisles while others remained frozen in place, hoping somebody would explain how a luxury wedding transformed into a financial investigation in under 20 minutes. Daniel stepped beside me one last time. "Your board already received preliminary containment notices," he said calmly. "Markets open Monday. We moved fast enough to protect the Phoenix expansion contract from collateral fallout. Practical. Precise. That mattered now. Public humiliation fades eventually. Financial contamination spreads forever unless somebody cuts it out early." Olivia heard every word. "You already handled all of this," she whispered weakly. "Since when?" I looked at her wedding ring still wrapped around her finger. Platinum. Oval-cut diamond. A symbol built for permanence sitting inside the ruins of a temporary scam. "Since the first lie stopped sounding accidental," I answered. She broke completely then, shoulders collapsing inward, breathing uneven, every layer of confidence stripped away in front of 200 witnesses. Part of me expected satisfaction in that moment. Instead, I felt tired, deep tired, the kind that settles into a man after carrying trust farther than he should have. I removed my own ring slowly and placed it beside the unsigned marriage license. "Keep the dress," I said quietly. "The rest belongs to the attorneys now." Then I walked past the altar, past the shattered flower arrangements, past guests pretending to study the floor instead of my face. Nobody stopped me. Nobody had words big enough for what just happened inside that chapel. At the valet entrance, my phone buzzed one final time before I reached the car. Another message from Rachel. One sentence only. "You were never his real target either." Attached beneath it sat a photograph of Jason standing beside a woman I recognized instantly. My chief financial officer.